Welcome to my mom's house, which is where all nerdy podcasts should be created. It's not her basement.
I don't know what to say to that.
Nobody knows. Steam Deck. You have not actually told me your initial impressions and like had a conversation about exactly what your first user experience was like and stuff. So tell me what you think of it. So Serdar, if you don't know, is PC Master Race, hardcore PC player, not a big console guy, did not come from a background of using controllers and all that stuff originally.
Whoa. I mean, I NES, SNES,
right, but we're talking
GameCube,
current,
N64,
the last three
Switch.
generations of games. He's PC.
Yeah.
He had a Switch, but that's not how you play your games. Like, that's not what you choose.
Yeah.
So you are a computer, especially for shooters, keyboard and mouse. Like you're the perfect PC fanboy perspective,
right?
And I'm much more of a console fanboy perspective.
And that's it's especially PC wise because that's I started with that with building them.
Mm-hmm.
I got my mentor back 22 years ago.
1200 BC.
Woo! Yeah, that got me. So the whole thing being so involved with the hardware aspect of computers is what really. I mean, I've always played PC games for the most part. Like Heroes of Might and Magic on the PC. Games like Leisure Suit Larry, like all the King's Quest. Oh my goodness, such good stuff. So yeah. And getting the Steam Deck, first impression, which I think I told you originally, was, it's a lot bigger than I thought it was. You look at things on video, pictures, advertisements, things like that. You're like, okay, hey, portable device, awesome, this, that.
And there are very large tech reviewers with very large hands, and there are tiny ones with tiny hands. So depending on what video you watch, it could look smaller than a Switch or absolutely massive.
And I've got small hands, so I've got very, slim, slender hands. So and that box shows up, and it's a nice box, nice packaging. Good job, Valve. And you just open it. It's got the little greeting on there. It's like, you're going places, or your games are going places, something like that. Whatever, which is fantastic. And then you pick it up, and it's like, wow. It's big, but it's nice.
I'm going to speak to that because everyone said, wow, it's so light. And I don't think it's light. Not objectively. I think it's light-ish for how big it is, but I don't think it's light at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's light, but it definitely feels nice. It
feels great.
Yeah. So, some things feel light and cheap. Some things will feel heavy and good. But some things can feel heavy and cheap too.
That's what she said.
And once you have a firm grip, and but this it's kind of in the middle. It's kind of in the middle, I think. But it definitely has a good quality feel to it.
Yeah, I think of it like an iPhone or a Galaxy S20 6000 or whatever they're on. Like it feels dense.
Right.
Like it feels.
There definitely feels like there's hardware in there. Yeah.
It feels good. Like you can tell it's not a giant pile of plastic garbage, but yeah, it's not. I would not call it light.
Oh yeah.
By any means. Yeah. But it also doesn't like fatigue me when I use it.
Right. Yeah. To me, if anything, it's not the weight behind it. It's the
motion of the ocean.
It's the grip. To me, because of how my hands are smaller and more slender. It can get a bit awkward in some ways to hold it, depending on what's being played or done on it. Because I find you have to really get into that groove of holding it the right way. Mm-hmm. I've been using Xbox controller on my computer, things like that. So that's definitely, I'm used to that grip style. Whereas on this, at first I find myself supporting it with the palm, And that gets awkward.
I think that's one of the things I want to touch on the Steam Deck that I thought was really cool. So I bought the big fat bin box controller you always make fun of. So I had basically Xbox size or PlayStation size controller for the Switch. So on my Switch, I couldn't do this all the time. Like I just couldn't squish my fingers.
The Switch
horribly uncomfortable.
To me felt worse than this. It to me. It was
100%.
very because it's
100%.
extremely thin.
It's way too thin. There's nothing for your fingers to wrap around.
Yeah, and all the buttons are all the way out to the edges. It was that one was extremely awkward.
Yeah, and to that point, the Steam Deck has buttons all the way out to the edges. But what you don't realize is that, and this is what was interesting about getting, like, there's the Binbach Joypad and there's the Switch Pad Pro or whatever, Split Pad Pro.
Yeah.
Both of them are basically designed at this angle, right? So when you're holding a controller and your arms are together, it needs to be at this angle because that's the natural angle of your wrists. Otherwise, if it was straight or whatever, you'd be doing this, right? But when you put that on the outside of 8 inches of Switch, that's a weird position. And I didn't notice it until I had it for like a month of constantly playing it. And what I noticed immediately about the Steam Deck is it being even wider than that is that the handles are more out or flat. Right. Which weirdly enough, when you look at it, you think, oh, that's not shaped like any other controller. But once you kind of learn how to, I call it choke, like you're choking up on a bat. Once you choke up on it, you realize your wrists, it's like seems so well thought out. Like your wrists are perfectly straight. Right. And I noticed that the way that it's most comfortable for my thumbs to hit the sticks and stuff, it actually, because I'm twisted outward this way, the outside buttons, my biggest issue with I have goofy hands and I've had a lot of injuries over the years, weightlifting and other stuff. This thumb gets really fatigued if I have to hit B a lot. So like when we play Elden Ring and I'm holding B down to sprint or whatever, this all cramps up. It feels way too far out of the way. But on the Steam Deck, B is just, it's just right there. It's physically less fatiguing for me. Yeah. And I play a lot. You'll probably do this too if you get one and you're watching. You play a lot like this. I put a pillow when I'm on the couch. I lean back. I put a pillow under each elbow so that my arms are just naturally in my face. And I play like this. And what I've noticed is it's so wide that my elbows and arms are in like a natural to the side of me position. And it never really gets heavy because the way you grip it, that kind of curve, even the little curve on the front of it rests in your palm. Like, I don't know. I just think it was really, really well. The controller part was thought out in the way that the Xbox controller. So when the Xbox One controller was created, there were something like 182 designs over the course of 3 years. And they had like thousands of people hold them and touch them. And there was like a shitload of R&D went into it. Yeah. And this feels like that level of or maybe just, I don't know, Gaben was like, fuck those controllers. I just wish it felt like this. And then they just made that. But I think it feels fantastic.
They made the Steam controller.
True.
Which, probably added to that R&D,
Well, and that's another thing I would like us to talk about. Most people, especially newer, younger people, probably don't know about Steam machines. They might know about big picture mode, which is that's kind of like the skin on top of the OS.
Essentially, yeah.
And so the R&D, like these Steam Decks are not some new thing that Valve came up with a year ago. There's probably 10 or 12 years. I think 2012, 2014. When did the Steam controller come out? It was a long time ago. Oh, yeah, long time. It was about a decade ago. So all that R&D for that, even though the controller flopped, went into this. Steam machines were basically console-sized, pre-built gaming PCs. They could have been cool. I think the marketing wasn't there. It wasn't the right time. But I really wanted to, on this, if we're talking about the Steam Deck, talk about how many years of R&D in other things that directly came into this this device. I love it. I think it's so well built.
Yeah, it really is. Quality.
What do you think about the screen?
Screen's fine. It's great. The quality of it's great. What I love about it, it's not some like mind-blowing new technology screen or anything like that, which is fine. It does what it needs to do. But it reminds me of like when I got like my Game Gear at first, and it's like that digital display, and it's just seeing this little thing in your hand. It's just it's hard to describe that feeling, unless you've experienced something like that yourself. But
it's even got the same size bezels around it as the Game Gear.
Well, they probably had to source a specific size, and that's the only one that they can source in that size. And
I think it might have been the other way around. They couldn't find small enough cooling or computer chip, or like all the motherboard stuff was probably impossible. Yeah. I found it underwhelming, specifically the colors. It's a great LCD screen. It looks beautiful. I'm blown away at the fact that they can get as dim as it does. Because if I'm going to have a device like that,
Or
I'm
bright.
married and I have to go to bed with somebody else, I needed to get really, really dark if I'm going to play it in bed in the middle of the night because I can't sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised sometimes at night, like, you're laying in bed, maybe lights are off or the lights are very dim. And like I turn power, wake it up from sleep, and it's just this huge bright screen. And surprisingly, I have to turn it down like all the way just so it's like, comfortable. It gets really dim, which is nice.
It can get really dim. It's also really bright.
Yeah.
What is a good laptop brightness on a screen is like 500 nits, and it's a lot smaller. It's probably not that high, but it feels that bright. Like you could probably use it in daylight. I probably wouldn't expect it to be good.
The quality behind it's fantastic. It's fine. It does what like
I think
I have an IPS ultra wide monitor. I've got the Galaxy screen, which is phenomenal. And then
we're both looking.
It's not like I open up the Steam Deck and it's like, wow, this screen sucks. Like, no, it's great.
So it was only disappointing to me because I had spent 2 months playing a Switch OLED, and it was only the colors. And really, what it comes down to when you're playing video games is video games don't have the amount of colors that a movie does or a Pixar film does. So, like, if you watch YouTube on it...
depending on what you're playing. I mean, you load up Cyberpunk. Woo!
Right, but even that looks incredible on it. Like, the different luminance values and the number of colors. Like, you don't need 1,000,000-to-1 contrast ratio to play Borderlands and have neon colors look bright. So, like, I would say if you're going to use it as, like, your tablet replacement, your all-in-one, everything, consuming device, movie and TV shows will look ugly. But your video games look epic. But I think the coolest thing about it is that 1200 by 800, the resolution's perfect. At any distance that you would play it, I don't see screen door. I don't see the pixels. I don't really ever notice them. The only time I notice them the only time you're going to notice them is if you're playing native resolution on a super AAA game that's really hard for it to run on, what was I playing? On Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. I had FSR on. It was at native res and at the lowest of all settings. Played phenomenal, 30 to 40 frames per second, looked incredible, but certain effects, you could see every pixel of the effect. That's pretty much it, though. Anything else I played, Elden Ring looks incredible. Everything looks incredible. And then, like, one of the big things you want to turn off on these to get it to run at a really stable frame rate is you want to turn off all the blurs. Like, we always do that anyway. That always gives you
motion
5-10
blur
frames.
definitely. That
motion blur and depth of field, because that's doing a radial blur. So part of the screen's always blurring. But I turned off anti-aliasing.
Yeah,
which makes all the things all the edges look rougher and sharper. But dude, the frame timing specifically is what got better.
Yeah, and when you're playing on a device that's relatively that small, it's fine.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you're playing at native resolution. You don't need anti-aliasing unless it's weirdly like if you're playing a 1440 monitor with a 1080 game, because that's the only way you can get the frame rate you want. You need anti-aliasing because there's 1.5 frames per or 1.5 pixels per pixel or whatever. What else about the Steam Deck? What else should we talk about?
I haven't really gotten too deep into it, which isn't the purpose behind me getting it. Honestly, I didn't really need it.
I don't think anybody needs it.
I mean, I've done all my gaming on my desktop essentially, and then but the thing I will say is that I do not turn my desktop on nearly as much anymore because there'll be times you get home, a long day, from work. It's like you're at home at 8:30. You take your shower, you have your dinner, this and that, and then turn on your I gotta I want to play another level on this or what, or I just want to do a quick round. I've been addicted on Vampire Survivors. I just want to do a few rounds on Vampire Survivors. I'm not gonna sit there. I don't have to boot up my computer, do this and that. I just wake this up, lay in bed, play for 30, 40 minutes, hour, whatever it is, and then I'll go pass out now. It's very convenient for that purpose, specifically for me, because I'm not someone that'll travel. I'm not on planes all the time, not on trains. I'm not,
not on automobiles.
Not at automobiles, not on Ubers. I'm not, so it wasn't really that purpose that I really bought it for, which those purposes will come up, which will be amazing to have for. But just that nice little convenience behind it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I noticed that I don't play anything on my PC or my PlayStation 5 or my Xbox since I bought it, unless he's playing a modded version of Elden Ring with me.
Right,
That's
yeah.
literally the only time I've touched any other device in my house since I bought it. I would say I've had it for a month now. What did I say I got it? The 29th or something of August?
That sounds about right.
So I've had it for almost exactly a month, and I have only played Elden Ring on my PC, only because we're playing a co-op version of it together, and that's it. Everything else I played almost all of Guardians of the Galaxy. The second playthrough I had started, I don't know, 6 months ago, right before we got Elden Ring.
Right.
I was like in a rut, didn't have anything new, nothing had come out, and so I just started playing it. I played for like a week, then we bought Elden Ring. I never played it again. So the second I got the deck, I was like, oh, this has the yellow tag on it that says basically it works fine, but like some text or whatever. I was like, okay,
Right,
cool.
yeah.
So I'm like, this is a heavy duty AAA title. Let me load it up. Downloaded like 70 gigs later, 60 gigs later,
Yeah.
massive file. Filled up half my fucking hard drive. But I loaded it up and it looked amazing. And I mean amazing. Played flawlessly. And I think what's cool is that on a screen that small, 30 to 40 frames per second is it absolutely looks butter smooth.
Yeah, it's great. Especially if you like, let's say if you put your refresh in the settings for the Steam Deck, put the screen refresh at 60, you lock your FPS at the 30, and then that's perfect.
Or if you watch my tips and trips for beginners, especially if you want to do that, if you want really steady frame times, but you also want to pick up some battery life, what I do is I limit it whenever I'm away from a charger to 10 watts instead of 15. That seems to be the sweet spot. Point of diminishing returns is everything after that. And you limit the screen, you drop the refresh rate to 40, and then you limit it to 40. And what I noticed is on the heavy duty AAA stuff, the frame times are way more consistent. If most people are probably going to buy this, take it out of the box, load up everything, and leave it at 60.
Right.
And what they're going to notice is lag spikes, these weird frame times where like there's hitching and stuff. And all of that went away the second I limited it to 40 frames per second, because that limit is a hardware limit, which is badass. Like I can literally limit the refresh rate of the screen. You know you're doing it because as soon as you do and you hit OK, the screen blacks and comes back on. Which means it's not a software limit, and it's not a limit in the game, which doesn't always work perfectly.
I don't actually know if it's a hardware.
That's what
level
everything
or
I've
not.
read
Is
says.
it?
Yeah, because when you so there's two sliders, one to limit from 30 to
Right,
60.
yeah.
That one below it is a hardware limit. It physically changes the refresh rate of the screen,
Right, yeah.
which
yeah.
is badass. That's the Switch doesn't do that. Nothing else does that.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't really dove too much into it.
Yeah, and I mean, right now we both
Honestly,
have
I
played
haven't really
this-
looked at the specs that much. I know, like, it's got an
Yeah.
RDNA 2 and this and that, but like,
the only specs,
but that's how great of a device I think it is because it's like I didn't have to really do that. It's like I can play this on here. Sweet, like
yeah, and I have 3 videos up on the channel about this, and every other comment is, "Oh, you got to emulate. Oh, you got to this. Oh, you got to that." But I'm like, I'm still stuck just playing it completely stock. I mean, I messed with a couple settings in SteamOS, but like, it's so good, and there's so many games in my own library that I want to play on it. I have no reason to tweak it. I have no reason to go into desktop mode. I have no reason to load 12 other launchers.
Yeah.
I don't need any of that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're the average Steam, like for new people coming on, you have 5,000 plus games that will totally work. Right. Like,
and
for people who don't, you have 500 games you already bought that you probably haven't played most
that's
of anyway.
That's what's fantastic about it. Like you go buy a Switch, a Nintendo Switch, fantastic device. They make fantastic games, but you're going into a whole new library that you have to buy, rebuy. Yeah. Maybe you like playing a specific game. Oh, I want to play it on here. Got to go pay $60.
Well, and
when you've already dropped 200, 300, 400,
Here's the other sad thing about it. All the games that are on that and this will play better at a higher frame rate, at a more consistent frame rate, at higher resolution.
And even better is that you'll be able to just jump back and forth.
Yeah. This is okay. Let's talk about the suspension. That's one of the other biggest reasons I picked the deck up over my PC is when you stop on your PC, you can't just hit sleep
right,
and pick it up where you left off. You can completely do that on the Steam Deck. You just hit the power button.
Yeah.
And it's so good. Windows could never do this. Windows is way too inefficient with sleep and all that. It's always had problems with sleep. You can literally do that and no battery drains. That's like game changer for me. If I could get my PC to have a suspend button on it like that, oh my gosh, night and day.
Yeah, I've never used sleep suspend on my PC.
But the only reason you would need to is if you were in the middle of a part of a game and you didn't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
Which you can do on the Steam Deck and you can't do at home, like on your regular computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I think SteamOS is actually fantastic.
No, it's great. It's phenomenal.
I'm blown away. We could talk about our weird little problems we've had.
On the Steam Deck?
Yeah.
Well, there was the chat problem, which out of nowhere fixed itself. It makes no sense, but hey, it's cool.
we've had weird little reboots. Like I've noticed I've
only had that happen maybe like once, I think.
I've had the same one, the one I told you about 2 days ago. I've had the same one happen multiple times. And so whenever I go into the menu and I hit the Steam button, we're not in the menu, but I'm in a game, I hit the Steam button on the left and it brings up the menu. You can go to library or whatever, or you can go into your game shows up at the top. You can go into the settings of the game and you can manually exit the game there. I've noticed that if I go to that, scroll down to end game and hit boom, boom, like immediately hit the button twice to go, yes, I want to do this. And yes, I'm confirming it. It reboots every time.
Oh, interesting.
Almost every time I do it. But when I do it really slow and I wait, the screen flickers black and then it closes the game. So that's when I've been able to recreate a few times. Interesting. But like, what does it take?
Yeah, for
5
me,
seconds
it was
to reboot?
in the Steam OS itself. Just, I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but just click something and then just like, okay, screen shut off and then boot logo. I mean, it's a computer, so
yeah. And it's Linux, which means, I mean, how old is Steam OS realistically? Even if we put all the R&D in, a decade maybe.
Yeah.
You know, everything from Steam OS and big picture mode.
It's expected. I mean, I'm not gonna be like, oh goddamn, first world problem.
No, and I'm not doing that. I just want to make sure people know. Like, if somebody's going to watch a 25 or 30-minute video about dudes talking about the Steam Deck, they're going to want to know all the little stuff that I might not remember to put in a video or a tips and tricks or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm blown away, dude. Like, maybe I'm still in the honeymoon period, but like, it's that good.
No, it's
so
phenomenal.
incredible.
It's just when I have the opportunity to, like, some downtime, the other day, took my mom out to the dentist, just, doing some errands here and there, and just like somewhere where I don't have to get out of the car, just play a little bit,
Dude, I'm telling you. I mean, the only downside to it versus a Switch or something else is that it's massive when it's in the case. It's not actually that bad if it's out of the case.
Yeah, so I have the case. I have a laptop backpack that I got from Waterfield. I love that brand. And they have a really cool backpack case I got for my laptop, put charger in there, my mouse, this and that, USB cables. And while I had my Steam Deck on shipping, being shipped out, I was like, oh, sweet. Like, it should be able to, with this case, just slide right in. It'll be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it fits, but it's a little tight.
Snug.
This goes back to originally talking, like, it's a lot bigger than I expected it to be. Yeah, it's a relatively big device.
If I could get, so I don't know if you had a Switch. Did you get a case for it? Like the main normal
Switch, I did not.
So the normal carrying case for the Switch only fits the Switch in a couple of games. It doesn't fit a charger.
Right.
So I think what I would do if I could get one on Amazon,
I did have a case for that where you can put a couple games
underneath it and had the Velcro or
something
whatever.
like that.
So the charger with a brick won't fit in it. But for most of when you and I are just grabbing it and taking it around town, the battery life's good enough that if I could get a case, and you guys can see it's very thick, and the reason it's so thick is there's this pocket back here.
Rigid.
Yeah, it's fantastic. What I'm proposing is if I could find an Amazon cheap for $12.99 one that only holds the Steam Deck and doesn't have a giant back pocket for. I would take that 99% of the time. Yeah. And I'd probably take this one on a trip to California like this to come visit and put it in my backpack and suitcase. Yeah. But yeah, I would like a really slim case that's basically the same profile as the deck. That would be pretty cool. I like the idea of the one from what's the skin company? D-Brand. That one that's coming out. Yeah. What's cool about that is it's a plastic rubber shell and a grip, but it also has a clip over the top. Right. Which basically makes it a case. And it looks
the only thing I would worry about stuff like that is the joysticks.
There's a hard shell over them.
Oh, is there? I don't remember.
Yeah,
I didn't,
dude, I'm telling you, it's pretty cool. But again, that'll be $50.
Yeah.
If I can get this half as thin for $12.99 cheap Amazon, that's going in my backpack over and over again.
What I do have to say about Steam Deck though is when I got my Switch several years ago, my plan was play the newest Mario. What was it called? Odyssey or something? Yeah. Play Odyssey.
Absolutely fantastic.
Play Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Also a fantastic game.
And then that was the plan for that. So I played both of those. And then I sold my Switch because I have no more use for this.
Right, but we bought it at launch. I
didn't buy it at launch.
Not at launch, a few months. Yeah, we both bought it 3 or 4 months after launch, and legitimately, almost every actual licensed game, other than those two, was from like what was it, Wii U. They weren't even new games. Like that first year, there were like 3 new games. Like there was really no point in playing.
Breath of the Wild was made for Switch.
Yes, it was, and Odyssey was. But all the other Mario and Luigi, every other first party game was not new. They had they just kept porting.
Well, here's
old
the thing,
stuff.
though. I've got absolutely zero thoughts in my head about getting rid of this until maybe 5 years from now when there's a Deck 2 or something.
And what's cool about that is this will probably still be powerful enough that you could go plug it in the other room to a dock and a lap and a thing, and it could be a freaking NAS. It could be a storage device. It could be
anything
plugged into a TV with a mouse and keyboard in your spare room. Like it's a full laptop. Yeah, I freaking love it, man. I don't. It's just so good.
Thing is, if you like, just like for the examples that we were giving earlier and that I was talking about, it's just if you like having just something portable, you don't have to like be flying all the time, taking buses and trains. It works great in that scenario, obviously, but just something that's easy, quick, comfortable to use. You have your library all ready to go. You just download them. It's a great little device to get if you're into that. And it's not like if you're one of those that don't game as much anymore as you used to because of this scenario or that scenario. Like what I was saying was you could, it's not something where you have to constantly be traveling in order to use it.
No.
It's like if you don't find yourself, like you used to game a lot and you don't play games anymore, but you love to, you want to, but you have other things and this and that. It just gives very quick, easy, off-on experience where maybe there's a small indie game that you just love to play, or if it's a big AAA game, you play Elden Ring, you play whatever it is.
I think to this point, this is for parents.
It's just it could be parents, anything. Yeah,
so many or just professionals that
are
old.
Be like, sweet, I'll just
all my friends
real quick
who have young kids. They can't be like, oh, cool, I have an hour. Let me go boot up the PC. Let me go log into Discord. Let me go call my friend. None of them have that time.
Yeah.
And this gives those people the ability to be like, okay, the kids are down for a nap. I need to do something for remember, this is the whole millennium. This is a generation where everybody played video games in this generation. All the adults right now grew up on video games.
Right.
Our parents didn't. But all of us did.
Yeah.
And that's the way most people, not most people, but only 3.6 billion people on the planet are playing video games out of the 7 now.
But at the same time, it's even for the people that really aren't into playing games or
that's what I'm saying.
It's great.
I would rather the suspendability and that stuff, it makes it so that if you only have 15 minutes, instead of scrolling Instagram, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, and you have a great, like you were saying, you have a great library to even just choose from, because not just
my games for $1.
Not just exactly. It's not just the quantity of the games that are on there. Obviously, there's some high quality games. Every game you can think of is going to be on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that it's like you're like, oh, this game looks awesome, but I don't really want to spend $60 for it right now, or $50, whatever it is, $49.95. Put it on your wish list, make a little note, and just whenever it goes on sale, you put on your wish list in the Steam library, on your deck or on your computer, on your phone, on the Steam app, whatever it is. It goes on sale, you get a notification. Hey, there's a summer sale, 50% off. Now it's $30. Now it's $20. Now,
and if you do what I do, most of my
and this is what I've been doing for about how long I've had my Steam account, like 18 years now.
There are games that are incredible games, but are only, I like to think of it as how much fun am I going to get out of it? Like the easiest way for me to quantify how much a game should be spent is how long it plays.
Yeah.
If I look at a game that's AAA and incredible, but it's 20 hours long, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example. If you can buy that game for 50% off or more, which probably now you could do more, it's the best game you'll ever play. I mean, it's absolutely incredible, but it's like 16 hours.
Right.
And if I'm playing Elden Ring for 200 hours for $60,
right,
you got to be a serious Marvel fan to buy that game.
Yeah.
And so when I quantify it, for every $10 I spend on a game, I should get about 6 hours of gameplay minimum.
Right.
If it's a great game. So the cool thing about Steam is you can get games like that 3 years later, which right now with this hardware, anything 2 to 7 years old, because of the limitation of the resolution and the massive quantity of hardware and horsepower you will have an experience as if it was AAA and brand new to you then, but it'll be AAA and brand new to you now.
Yeah.
And you can get these games for $5 on a summer sale or any of the Steam sales. Like, I think it's the perfect entry to gaming in general. That's a bold claim. I'm going to explain. It's $400, let's say. High barrier to entry. It's pretty high, right? I mean, you're getting a Xbox Series S basically, or X, almost a PlayStation 5, almost 5, not quite 500, almost 500. But what you're getting is a store full of games you can afford a lot of over the course of its life. So the biggest thing about PC gaming, this is why Steam came out with Steam machines and all their own controllers and all this stuff, was $1,500 has kind of always been the true barrier to true AAA gaming on a PC. That's a lot of money to justify over how many years you're going to have it, assuming you never upgrade it, getting games for half price.
Right. Well, and to that too, you buy a Xbox, you buy a PlayStation, you buy, a Nintendo, whatever. There's a very high probability of the amount of money you put into that library of games that the next generation of console, they'll be like, no, you can't use that one. You can't use those games on these anymore.
Yes.
Whereas you buy and play games on here, 10 years from now, you build a computer, you have those games. They'll work.
So that DuckTales game is a perfect example. It's no longer on the store. It's no longer on Steam.
Yeah.
And if that was on PlayStation or Xbox stores, it would be gone. It would just disappear forever.
Right.
On Steam, I still own this game from my childhood. It came out in 94 or something. Yeah. And honestly, it still looks incredible and plays incredible, especially on the Steam Deck.
Especially
it looks brand new. That's a perfect example. All of my games that are old and discontinued and not there, they're in my library and they're still on the hard drive, on the server at Steam. So I can download it still to this day on any. And the reason that a lot of games like movies and other things disappear out of these stores is DRM essentially. Songs.
There's a possibility of which has happened where on Steam a game would be pulled off Steam because of a license for a song would be expired from the
songs
developer
or whatever. So buying from Steam is more like buying a Blu-ray, than it is like buying it on Apple or from HBO or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. And some of that stuff can still go.
Valve / Steam is going to be around for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean the thing about
so you don't have a worry about something like Ubisoft just being
EA.
Like, you know what?
Well, yeah,
no more online. You know what? Actually, you know what? You can't even download this game anymore. And because it's tied to our servers, we're just going to cut the servers. You can't play this game anymore, even though you bought it full price, $60 when it came out.
Well, and think about this too. Recently, we both decided we wanted to play Dark Souls 3 together online. And when I went in to download it the other day and play it, I noticed that there were these 3 articles talking about patches to get. So they had turned off all the servers on the Steam side, the PC servers for you to play online together. And because the Steam Deck, I'm assuming it's because Steam Deck came out. Steam Deck came out, and like I said, games that are 3 to 5 years old are like the ultimate, run 60 frames per second, flawless, full resolution, like they're incredible, including that one. They just turned all the servers back on for 3 and posted an article on Steam saying the developers are going to bring the other 2 servers for Dark Souls 1 and 2 back on. So like, look at that. Yeah. Like if the community suddenly starts going back and buying older games on Steam, they just turn stuff on because they're making the money to support it. Whereas
let's
PlayStation
preface
3,
that by saying they turned off the servers because of exploit on the there was a
that's true.
exploit on the
That's true. But like, I don't think there was a plan to turn Dark Souls 1 and 2 back on because it's not like those games were selling.
They definitely would, because you would be
think?
surprised at the community that's still active on those. Yeah.
That's true. And there's a lot of games that don't have a community.
The net code probably because I would say Elden Ring is a lot closer to Dark Souls 3's net code than the first two is. I mean, I don't know for a fact.
It looks and plays almost identical. It feels very similar. So yeah, that wouldn't shock me.
That's what I would expect.
Well, then that loops us back to another one of 3 different points as to why it's better to buy on Steam. The fact that they're patching things instead of pulling full support.
Yeah.
If it was a PlayStation 3 store game, they just shut down almost all PlayStation 3 store games. PSP store game, all that. This is all recent tech news in the last 90 days. Is PlayStation's like, it's not worth our money. We're going to put all our money. So what about people who have old consoles and love to play them? And this is the whole thing right now where everybody's emulating stuff on the Switch, or from the Switch or whatever onto the Steam Deck. This is why emulation is such a big deal. You know, you got what's his name at Nintendo suing the pants off everyone they can find, but it's like, how are we supposed to play old games if you won't release them?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Like, maybe they should come out with an original game. Nowadays with technology, they could come out with an original Game Boy with a 1 terabyte hard drive in it, charge $250 and put all the games on it.
Yeah, everyone
I'd buy that in a heartbeat. I would buy it right now.
Yeah.
You could charge me $5 a month forever to license the games, and I would probably buy that thing and keep it and play those games for the rest of my life for $5. But they won't. You know?
No.
Limited edition release clocks and stopwatches and shit that plays games.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they'll release games like Nintendo will release games on their online store, but it's like limited time. Yeah. So only 30, like there was the Mario.
The original Mario.
It was 3, like something with like, was it those or something? It was Mario 64 and some other games. Yeah, it was like 3 of them.
It was right after we both sold ours. So we bought Switches and sold them right away.
Yeah, they just did a limited time where for like $30 or whatever it was, you get all 3 of them. But then, 30 days only. It was over. And after that.
When they first started doing that, right after we got rid of our Switches in 2019 or whatever, what they did is they came out with this like thing where every month there were 2 original Nintendo games, NES, Nintendo 64, whatever, at a time. And they were re-releases and you could buy them, but you could only buy them for 30 days. And then nobody ever again in the rest of the history of fucking Switch could buy them.
Right.
What they have now is they put their own emulators of each of the original systems on. So you pay your $10 a month for Nintendo Online or whatever, and then you have access to all these. But what they didn't do is remap any of the buttons to make them make sense on the Switch.
Right.
Now, what they did is they added your own button mapping thing in the Switch. But how many people that buy a Switch, the demographic for the Switch is much younger people who aren't going in and remapping buttons and doing nerdy Switch Steam Deck stuff.
Yeah.
So the Nintendo 64 had the dumbest controller in the history of controllers.
It was very goofy.
You could literally hold it 2 completely different ways. Like,
well, it's like you either use the D-pad or you use the joystick.
Yeah, and it's like joystick and D-pad is like the de facto forever ever since. But yeah, so like just like they don't make it easy. They don't make the experience good. And I'll say Steam OS versus Switch OS. Switch OS is much more simple, right? That's fine. But just the freaking Wi-Fi card in it alone, I can tell the difference. When I go through Steam, beep, 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 navigate, everything's fast, amazing. Yeah. Downloads are
very
fast,
responsive,
responsive, fantastic. That Steam store, I mean the Nintendo Switch store, kill me. If you tried loading it,
it's terrible.
Yeah. Like, what year is this? This dial-up?
Yeah.
Then you download a game that's 12 kilobytes, a side-scrolling nothing game, 15, 20 minutes. So the Steam Deck has a normal Wi-Fi 5 card. So it's not Wi-Fi 6, not super crazy fast, gnarly stuff. But in my house, on my Wi-Fi 6 router, obviously not Wi-Fi 6 directly to it, I'm still downloading things over 5 gigahertz band Wi-Fi at, what did I send you that picture? 60 megabytes per second?
Right. Yeah.
I downloaded Elden Ring in 15 minutes. That's like an 80 gig or 70 gig game. Like,
I didn't.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, I want to do a real video about this.
But here's the beauty is because if your Wi-Fi is terrible, maybe your home Wi-Fi network sucks, you can buy a USB-C Ethernet adapter and just hardwire in and, you're good.
Well, and even on top of that, it's using x86 actual Windows game files. So I think technically you could go get your Steam
So
game.
what you can do, so you can, if you already have it or whatnot, you do a backup from your desktop library.
Drag and drop it to a flash
drive, and then
drive
you
or
drop
whatever.
it into the proper game file folder on your Steam Deck, and then the deck will, when you load it, of course, it'll see that it's not like that native, especially if it's built specifically for it, and it'll re-download if whatever it
needs.
Yeah, in order to make those files work.
And that might sound a little complicated.
Which instead of 80 gigabytes could be maybe 5.
Well, what if you have a 1 terabyte cap like I do, or 1.2 terabyte cap on your internet, and then you get charged, I think it's $15 for every 50 gigabytes?
Yeah.
So I get 1.2 terabytes, and then like 5% of that is where I get $15 draws. So like I can download a game once, put it in both files, download a second game, put it in both files. Or a lot of people most of the people who buy this probably do have a computer.
Yeah,
I think that's realistic. And I think that this is going to be the device, unlike the Neo Next and all those $1,500 similar things that run Windows. This is the first PC gaming thing that regular people can just go buy, and there's literally no tinkering needed. I would say even at the phase that it's at 6 months in.
And that goes back to what we were originally talking about, was like the whole console thing is, I've had zero desire to buy any console of any kind, in the past several years.
You know my recommendation now.
And,
the only one you should buy is a PlayStation, because if you have a PC, you can play every other thing that comes out, basically. Or maybe like Nintendo.
Well, Sony's getting smarter now, and they're starting to release their games out. But with no desire to buy
if you don't have a PlayStation, you can play PlayStation games 2 years later on a freaking Steam Deck.
Yeah, exactly.
In your hands.
You wait a little bit, but
it's worth it though.
But sometimes they'll remaster things, and like the Spider-Man, they'll up the resolution and this and that, because
let's think about it. 4K,
add like insane ray tracing
and all that. So 4K on the PS5, I would say the PS5's hardware would give you medium details, like medium-ish settings at 4K 30.
It's still great. I mean, it's just,
it looks amazing. But I'm trying to give a comparison for people who maybe have a PC and don't want to buy the games.
But
when
then
you
again,
get them
like,
remastered,
what kind of PC do they have?
True, but like even a 3060, let's say you're middle of the road right now. What is that? $400? If you're buying them now, they're probably $300-$400. You can probably get maybe even used. If you're building a $1,500 PC right now, you're gonna have almost double the graphical fidelity. Almost at any whatever you play it at whatever setting, whatever 4K, 1440. And let's be honest, most people who play PC games have a 1080p monitor still. Like the majority of the Steam specs are like 1060, 1080p. So like this is my biggest argument for the Xbox Series S versus a Switch. If you're in that $300 price range, which one do you buy? Well, for $50 less, if you don't like care that much about the handheld part, the amount of fidelity you're getting at 1080p isn't even fair between the two consoles. One is like ultra 1080p on a PC. The other's like 30 frames per second, kill yourself, smushy, smeared Vaseline all over your TV on the Switch. Like, have you seen what The Witcher looks like on the Switch?
Oh, yeah.
It shouldn't even be on there.
Yeah.
Doom, same thing.
Yeah.
Like less than low settings.
Right.
Like, so I think that's the big thing, is if you have an even decent PC. Now, maybe not a PS5, but let's say you sold your PS4, you built a PC, you still got 10 series cards in it, maybe 1080, 1070 Ti. You're at 1440 and 1080, you're still going to have I think you'll have a better experience on that than you would in 1080 on the PS5 for most people. So like, what we're talking about, an $800 used parts only PC, and now you can play all these old PS5 games that are basically new anyway because you didn't play them.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, that's how
like,
it was for me.
Relatively high fidelity. Like even at 1080, games can still have a shitload of detail.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, the resolution's lower so it doesn't look as... No, it looks incredible, but if you have less pixels, you don't know the difference between 1080 and 4K.
Right, yeah.
You know, how many people have their 55-inch 4K TV 6 inches from their gaming monitor like I do? Like I'm a weirdo. I'm a total outlier.
Yeah.
So like, I think if you were going to have multiple consoles, it's either you're a diehard Nintendo, grew up on Nintendo, you have to have all the Mario things and Link things. You do that in a PC. Right. And then the PC gives you the ability to do the best PS games, the best PlayStation games, but also gives you every Xbox game, every Microsoft game, every Ubisoft game,
Yeah.
but you couldn't buy a $500 PC. This is a $500 PC that can technically play anything.
Yeah, and you're not just limited to the device itself as far as being stuck on that. Like, oh, I can use it as a PC, but what about that tiny little screen? No, you have an HDMI cable, or get a little adapter, USB-C to HDMI, or get a USB to HDMI cable itself. Just plug it into a huge TV, a monitor, whatever you have, you're good.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, if you don't know any better, if you're used to like a Chromebook, or really low spec computer your school gave you, let's say younger people buy this. Like, I really want a gaming PC, but I really need to use something for school. Well, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office, all the suites of all the G Suite, all that stuff runs in a browser.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy a Chromebook for $300 or $400 for school, and you don't need it to be a laptop, like let's say you're not taking, you still take paper notes or something. You got an old iPad and a keyboard, but you want to get a PC and you want to get into gaming, you can run everything in a browser.
Yeah.
Which means you could go buy a dock or a dongle for $50 or $100. You're out the door $600. You have a totally capable PC, and now you can do all your homework on it. Get a cheap monitor for $50 on Craigslist or whatever.
Yeah.
Monitor, keyboard, mouse, plug it into a little $39 adapter, $39. You got two USB 3.0s, a card reader if you want to start your own YouTube channel or you're a photographer or whatever. And then you got a keyboard and mouse probably for free from somebody.
Yeah.
You're out the door at a pretty low barrier to entry. It's current gen hardware. That's the other thing.
Yeah. And the fact that if something does, down the line, maybe 2 years from now, something malfunctions, a component, a joystick, it's not like a Switch or something like that where you're like, okay, well, the thing is done for. This doesn't work anymore. I gotta either pay Nintendo $200 to fix this or buy a whole new one again. Well, and this was fantastic with what Valve has been doing, is that they partnered with iFixit, which is a
directly
amazing source to buy tools and repair components and this and that, where 2 years from now the joystick malfunctions, doesn't work properly, this and that. You you order the joystick and just you can go in and fix it and change it out.
Here's the cooler point to that. Because it's a totally open standard and they encourage it to be repairable, people make upgraded versions of stuff.
Right.
Already. There's already better magnet
joystick
or laser joysticks. So think about it. If that becomes this is PC gaming. Like, if you're not used to PC gaming, you don't understand the modding community.
And that's what I'm all about, because I grew up with, 22, 23 years ago, or maybe longer than that, building computers and at the hardware level and this and that I really appreciate that,
Yeah, and I'm pretty old. So I skipped multiple generations of gaming and stayed in consoles, but I started out playing literally Doom and Wolfenstein 3D on a keyboard with like 5 buttons to control the entire game. So most people truly started out with PC gaming. Really, if you're our age, that 39 to 50. But I think that the fascination for me has always been with controllers and stuff, has always been how much more visceral it felt to me than just pushing a bunch of keys on a keyboard. That's the thing I type. Yeah. So this is this cool hybrid. And I like the touchpads are kind of a cool touch. I have noticed though that because of the bumps on them and how rough my skin is, there's a jitteriness when I use it. I think that if you're more into mouse and keyboard and you just don't like aiming with a joystick on this particular set of controllers, if you were to get a skin that's totally smooth, I think that would be the jam. Aiming, with a smooth surface would probably be the jam. I don't know.
Really haven't even tried using the touchpad at all.
I'm pretty impressed.
I ran my fingers over it and this and that, and it's got a cool little feedback to it, which is nice.
Yeah, I don't know that I could. I think the joystick makes more sense for me than aiming with that.
Yeah,
but I mean, there are moments where
really test it out in specific games. Like for me, it's specific types of games that I use a specific type of controller input device. Like an FPS, I've got to have a mouse, keyboard.
Yeah, and
third person, Elden Ring, that's controller.
You could plug this straight into a TV with a dongle or a USB to HDMI thing and connect your freaking Xbox controller. It won't look amazing on a 4K
and what's
TV,
cool with this too, regarding that on the deck, is because it'll remap buttons automatically to certain games, specific games.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
automatically will find either a community one or an officially. Usually, it's an officially supported one.
Right,
It's like all the Souls games.
And
have
you
an
can,
officially
if you don't
supported
like
one.
it, you just change it.
Yeah, that's the best thing. That's absolutely the best part of it. And that's why, like, there's games that say they're not sure if they're compatible or they're not compatible
Right,
because
yeah.
they haven't gone through and tested each and every thing.
Right.
But when you have basically a touchpad, which is your keyboard and mouse input, like, you can kind of make any game work. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty much.
I think we
I think
covered
that's,
some
I think
good,
we've covered enough stuff for people. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, drop a like, comment, say hi, tell people what you think about the Steam Deck. I'll see you in the comments. I appreciate you all for watching, and peace out.